And so going off that, what are some strategies to help children deal with this stress and anxiety, particularly like associated to that return to school mindset?
Yes, and I mean here I think like really kind of taking a tiered approach is kind of the best way. And so, again, I just want to reemphasize, how critical as caregivers and parents a line of support we can be for our kids. And so, through listening, through observing, through being there, these relationships and strengthening these relationships can really kind of help buffer whatever stress is happening in a child's life. And so, this is, sometimes something that we don't always kind of appreciate, and it's actually a really important source of support. And then there's other, so both, kind of moving to a different tier, like opportunities to participate in school, open lines of communication with teachers and education professionals, so we know what's going on in the classroom, and also give the message that, we're all here to help. Opportunities to participate in extracurricular activities, whether that's things like sports or clubs or any activity that can both help kids develop hobbies that are going to be really great outlets for them, but then also to develop both peer networks, so kids who have common interests, and then opportunities for additional mentors in their life. And so, these are very kind of common things, but can actually be really powerful sources of support. And then, as I already alluded to, in terms of professional networks as well. So teachers, counselors in the school setting, but pediatricians can be an incredible resource here as well. Whether there's ever a concern or another opportunity to kind of share. And then, for kids where we may have already identified a concern. So, certainly, networks such as Rutgers University Behavioral Health, Children Specialized, offer specialized services that can support children. The New Jersey Systems of Care is another terrific resource. And then, and coming back to the theme of empowerment, there's also terrific resources that are out there, such as healthychildren.org, where parents can learn more about the signs and symptoms to look out for. And so these are just some of the resources that are available.
Thanks so much for sharing those resources and giving us an indication of what services are out there. I think often that information gets lost. We had a couple of developmental questions as well. So someone wrote in saying that they have a 3-year-old who is having difficulty speaking and whether they should be concerned or if there's anything that they can do about it. I think I got to read the little bit of blurb about returning to preschool, pre-K. So that's what sparked that interest.
Certainly if for a 3-year-old, if concerns around language are kind of surfacing, it typically is an opportunity to help support kids. And so there's a few things that we can do right off the bat. And so certainly one is talking with your pediatrician about those concerns. And again, there's screening tools that pediatricians can use to kind of help get to the bottom of kind of where the concerns may be. And then there's also great resources available. And so for kids who are under 3, and 3 is kind of a little bit of a tricky age because it's kind of when sort of supports switch. And so for kids under 3, there's the New Jersey Early Intervention System, which families can reach out to whenever they have a concern. They actually don't even need a referral. If there's a concern, they can reach out. Again, it's really advisable to connect with your pediatrician, connect with other professionals to kind of support. But this is a resource that's available to everyone. And then for kids who are older than age 3, then reaching out to the school district. And so there's a person or a group that's in charge of providing the special education supports, which is where therapies like speech are kind of housed. But again, I want to emphasize really the importance of also connecting with your pediatrician. because, there's other opportunities for speech therapists in the community and other supports that the pediatrician can connect families to as well.
That's great. And another reason to get those routine pediatrician appointments going. This is a question probably for both of you with certain child health conditions. I know that a couple came through with asthma and allergies and some disabilities. What information should parents and caregivers be sharing with the school to best support that child?
So I can start with that. First of all, I wanted to just reiterate what Dr. Jimenez said, that bringing your concerns to the pediatrician's office can be very helpful. It's a good place to start for getting things investigated and for getting recommendations for referrals if they're needed to outside places. And secondly, I think what's very important is to maintain communication. So parents should be talking to their kids' teachers about not just problems, but about how the child's doing, what their strengths are, how they're behaving, how they're interacting with other kids, because that's an environment that's where things might come out differently than they do at home, and where they can see really how their child's developing independent of them as parents. And so that kind of flows right into this next question, which is what kind of information should the parent be sharing with the school? And I think the more information that the school has about the child's development at home, but also about certainly their medical problems at home, the better they'll be able to take care of that child during the day while they're at school. Kids spend a great part of their day, and certainly in many cases, the majority of their waking day at school with their teachers and peers, and not at home with their parents. And so they should communicate those things. And there are forms available for some common conditions. You mentioned asthma and allergies. And so the schools often will formalize that in a health plan that they'll give the parent, and the parents can bring that to the doctor's office, and we'll fill those out so that the school has very specific instructions about what to do in emergencies or when certain problems arise. There's similar forms for kids with seizures and neurological problems as well, but the schools are equipped to handle kids both from typical, perfectly healthy kids with very few to no problems, all the way up through very complex kids with medical needs. There's a place for all of those children in the school system, and with good communication with the families as well as with the doctors and others caring for those kids, they can all be successful at school.
Great. I love the sentiment that the school should be part of that care team and supporting that child. Dr. Jimenez, did you want to add something?
Yes, I completely agree, and just want to reiterate what Dr. Schwab said. I think on different levels, communication with the school can be really helpful. Again, as Dr. Schwab pointed out, kids spend a lot of time in school, and so it does offer a really important perspective to understand kids' needs holistically. And so if the teacher's seeing concerns, and sometimes, there's opportunities that teachers may have that parents may not. And so, for example, seeing their child interact with other children. And so, teachers are able to see kids all day and around other kids, whereas parents may not have that opportunity if there's not other kids around. And then again, just to reinforce what Dr. Schwab already said, I would see communication, or look at communication with the school through the lens of, how can we really provide supports holistically to our kids? And so, sharing information with school can really open the door to understanding kids' needs, really enhancing how the school is able to support them and reinforce, the supports that families are providing at home.
Great, thank you. I think, I like that you said children spend the most time at school often, and I think that it's a great place to help make sure that they thrive. I was going to open up the floor now to anyone who may have questions of their own. Feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat if there's any questions that you still want answered, or any more information that our wonderful doctors and pediatricians can help with today.
I'll ask a question. Um, Thank you both so much for your time. A question I have two little kids, and I have already had a cold from them. So I'm just wondering if you could go over how I can prevent my children from getting sick while at school, besides getting them vaccinated, as you've already shared. Oh, Dr. Schwab, I think you're muted.
Yes, sorry. I'll start again because I get this question every day. First of all, it's a normal thing. And actually, I try to encourage families to see part of it as a good thing. We know that kids, once they start school, the first 3 years are really when they're going to be getting every cold that goes around. And the average is 2 to 4 viral infections a month during those first 3 years of school. And each one is going to last 3 to 10 days. So if you do the math, they may be sick most of the time. But each of those colds is kind of like exercise for the immune system and helps them develop their defenses and their ability to fight off those infections as they get older. So it's not necessarily bad that they get all of those viruses. It is part of growing up. But you can prevent them from getting some of it just by some common sense measures, like making sure they wash their hands, making sure they know how to cough into their sleeve, making sure they don't go to school when they're very ill, and kind of working with the school to make sure that the families that attend there are following similar precautions. And then, of course, vaccines are a big part of helping us avoid some of the more serious pathogens that cause disease that's a little more serious than just a common cold. So
Wow, I hadn't heard that statistic before about how many viral infections they get.
yeah. And then the parents get them all too.
It's very helpful to prepare though for that. So I'm glad I know that statistic.
I know we also got asked this question, and I think it's an important one with school. Oh, Chanel put one in the chat, so I'll read it out while the volleyball game's going on. Are the COVID vaccinations being administered during a specific season? Will it be annually, every other year, or every 3 to 5 years going forward?
And so, as with all things COVID, this is still evolving, and we're going to have to, the final answer is going to be we'll see. There is a new bivalent vaccine that's covering the newest strains of COVID, the Omicron strains, as well as the original strains. And that's available for the older kids. But right now, I mean, if I had to guess, I would say we're probably going to be getting future COVID vaccines. How often and how they're going to be administered, I think is yet to be seen.
Thanks for that. I think that's the way of the world now post-COVID, or heading into a living with COVID reality.